Good evening and welcome into Decision 2024 on the go here on the WTOV9, whether you're watching on the website, our YouTube page, or our Facebook page. I'm Jaime Baker and this is Dylan Cleland. And over the next 2 hours, we are going to be taking you through a list of different races, whether keeping you updated on the presidential race, some statewide races, and we will be hearing from reporters up and down the Ohio River and throughout both Ohio and West Virginia when it comes to races that are going to matter to you every day for the next 2 to 6 years even.
Yeah, Jamie, it's incredible that we're actually here. You know, you see the campaigns, candidates on the trail, whether it's at the local, state, or federal level for months, and the work they put in, the money that goes into these races, and then to see it all culminate, this week tonight with the results and seeing who will be in power and who will make the decisions that, again, impact your wallet, impact your families, impact your health for the next 4 or 5 years.
And yes, as most polls across Ohio and West Virginia, which a lot of people who will be watching us will be worrying about, don't close until 7:30, but we do have some polls that have already closed here at 7 o'clock. We're looking at NBC News. It looks like Vermont has already been called for Kamala Harris in the presidential race, and Donald Trump has been called in Kentucky. So right now, obviously, the electoral votes are the ones that decide who the next president is going to be. We're still waiting to hear from Georgia, Indiana, South Carolina, and Virginia. Again, those are all 7 p.m. uncalled races right now. The polls have closed there. Georgia's a big one to watch. Georgia is a big swing state. We were just looking at numbers. Georgia went for Donald Trump in 2016, but went for Joe Biden in 2020. So that one is going to be an interesting one as we start to look at some of these swing states numbers starting to come in over the next few hours.
When you talk about swing states, Jamie, you're looking at Georgia, you're looking at North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and both campaigns in the presidential race saying Pennsylvania could be the deciding factor in this year's election. But that's just at the presidential level, Jamie. We have a lot to talk about at the state level. In Ohio, there is a Senate seat up for grabs as incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown is facing Bernie Moreno. West Virginia side, Joe Manchin says he's going to step away and retire. So that opens up that Senate seat. Governor Jim Justice up for that against the former mayor of Wheeling, Glenn Elliott. So there's a lot of races that we're going to talk about tonight, not just that presidential race, but of course that we'll touch on that throughout the night too.
Absolutely. And you touched on that U.S. Senate race in West Virginia, and this is a number we heard tonight, and I had not realized this, forgetting that prior to Joe Manchin was Senator Robert Byrd, who first stepped into office in 1959. This will be the first time since January 3rd, 1959, if Jim Justice wins, that it is not a Democrat in this Senate seat for West Virginia, which is, I heard that number today. It was kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's a long time. I forgot how long Robert Byrd was in that position.
Yeah.
So this could make a definitely a changing of the guard for the state of West Virginia.
Yeah, and with that, if Governor Jim Justice gets that position, there's going to be a governor position open as well. Patrick Morrissey up for that, the current attorney general. So a lot of races that are going to have implications as you look down into the state level as well. Even if it's a federal race, it's going to have an impact on what happens statewide too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And while we're here, we're waiting for some people to log on, but let us tell you a little bit about election night on the go and kind of how this is going to run. We have been talking to our local reporters throughout the night, if you were tuned in at 5 and 6, but throughout the night, we will be hearing from Hannah Hayes, who is in Hancock County. She's covering a few races, but one that really is kind of getting looked at is the Weirton mayor race. We have 4 candidates in that one. We will have Jessica Riley in Jefferson County, Ohio. She's looking at 2 commission seats that are up for grabs. Olivia Zinn is in Wheeling and Ohio County. She's covering a handful of races that include delegates. She will also be keeping an eye on the West Virginia Attorney General race, as well as covering Glenn Elliott in that U.S. Senate race. Elsewhere, we have Jesse Kane in Belmont County. He's looking at a few levies, a few bonds. Skylar Sabansky is in Harrison County, Ohio, as she takes a look at some commission seats. Bill Steinbach is in Brooke County. He's got a commission seat, a sheriff's race, and a delegate's race. And then Claire O'Neill is in Marshall County, again, with a commission race and 2 delegates races, if I'm remembering all of these off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's locally for us. And then statewide, we also have some contributors from our sister stations. Tyler Madden, former reporter here at WTOV. He's now with WKRC in Cincinnati. He is at the Bernie Moreno campaign in Westlake, just outside of Cleveland. He'll comment on that and might be able to give us a little bit of insight onto the Sherrod Brown side of things as well in that race. And then Anna Saunders is covering the Jim Justice campaign this evening in Greenbrier County. And Daniel Burbank is with Patrick Morrissey. And of course, Morrissey running for governor, both Anna and Daniel from our sister station, WCHS in Charleston. And so we'll hear from them as well. They're going to offer a little bit of insight and kind of get that pulse of what's going on the ground at these campaign parties as those results are starting to come in.
Yes, and this is obviously, I know a lot of eyes are on the presidential election. And again, we will continue to keep you updated on those numbers as those results pour in. But we also want to make sure that folks know what's happening statewide and locally, because, you know, this is something I've realized as I've grown up and been voting. Some of these local races are what's going to affect you day in and day out. And so I think it's really important that we make sure we're keeping you guys updated on that. Again, polls close in West Virginia and Ohio at 7:30. So we're still kind of working towards getting any numbers with that. But we are going to be talking to some folks. We are waiting to hear from Lou Gentile. If you could speak a little bit on Lou's resume.
Yeah, Lou,
so to say.
Lou works currently in Columbus and does political consulting and strategizing. But Lou is, of course, from the Steubenville area. He served as a state senator in before losing to former state senator Frank Hoagland, who, of course, stepped down this past year. Lou has a lot of insight when it comes to the U.S. Senate race in Ohio. He'll be able to talk about Bernie Moreno and the Sherrod Brown campaigns, and of course, also a comment on the presidential race as well and what we're seeing there. So Lou will join us here in a little bit to talk about some of that stuff.
Now, also, while we're on the topic of the Bernie Moreno Sherrod Brown race, if you live in Ohio, I'm sure you knew this was happening because you probably saw a lot of commercials, heard a lot of radio ads. This was the most expensive race in the country. $500 million poured into that race alone. By far the most expensive race we've seen in the country. The second one coming just across state borders, essentially, in Pennsylvania for that U.S. Senate seat as well. But $500 million being poured into this seat.
It just shows you at this point where things are at. It's the fundraising can be done, and it gets to that point where you're spending that much money. But it's an overwhelming amount of money to be pouring into just advertising, commercials, radio ads, whatever, however that mode is. That's a lot of money. And, no matter what side you're on, Jamie, we talked about it earlier today a little bit with the economy, how it is. You see that kind of money being poured in, and it's sometimes things don't, add up quite literally when you're talking about money there. So we'll ask Lou a little bit about that situation and how that all shook down with the amount of money that was poured into that race. And you also mentioned another consequential Senate race is, of course, in Pennsylvania. Bob Casey Jr., the incumbent, is going up against Dave McCormick in that race. And you and I both covered rallies last night. You were at Kamala Harris. I was at the Donald Trump rally, both in Pittsburgh. Dave McCormick was there. He spoke. He, of course, put his support behind former President Trump in that race. But that's a big seat, too, when it comes to the Senate and the balance of power in Washington.
And then just coming in on NBC News, it looks as though they are projecting Donald Trump to win the state of Indiana. That is 11 electoral college votes. So that's now 2 states that they have projected to win for Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris right now projected to grab the win in Vermont. Those are the only 3 we've heard of so far. Again, a few states closing the polls at 7 o'clock, a lot closing at 7:30 and 8. So we will be getting more numbers and information kind of as we go along. So that is kind of some of the things that we are looking at right now. Dylan, I think as we kind of talk a little bit, there's going to be, we mentioned already, a bit of a changing of the guard in the state of West Virginia. West Virginia years ago used to be a very blue state, and obviously, things have changed a lot. As we mentioned, there has been a Democrat in a Senate seat in that state for, I'm not going to be able to do the math on this, 41 plus almost 7 decades. Almost 7 decades. So we are waiting to see what happens in that U.S. Senate race. But if current Governor Jim Justice were to win that, he would be the first Republican to hold that seat since 1958. You're looking at a governor race. Patrick Morrisey, if he were to win, he'd be the first guy elected governor as a Republican in a while, because if you remember correctly, when Jim Justice was originally elected to the governor office, he was a Democrat. Yeah. So there's a lot of different interesting turns I've seen in West Virginia that things have definitely started leaning Republican. We would very much expect the presidential race in West Virginia to go Donald Trump's way as well.
Yeah, and as we approach 10 after 7 here, our first guest looks like he's ready to join us. Lou, we talked about him again. He's a former state senator from the Steubenville area, and we have Jordan Lapata here producing tonight. So, Jordan, if I can bring in Lou and get his thoughts on, where things stand with this Senate race. There he is. Lou, how are you?
Good. It's good to be with you.
Thank you for joining us, Lou. We appreciate it. It is a big night across the country. And you and I spoke briefly on the phone this afternoon just to kind of firm up details for you to join us. And this Senate race in Ohio looks like it's going to be very tight.
Yeah, we always expected this to be a close race. Certainly in Ohio, given the dynamic there, the political landscape there, but also this is a nationally watched race, as you know. The balance of the U.S. Senate really hinges on this race and a few others. So it's attracted attention, not just in Ohio, but from around the country.
Lou, this is a race that we have seen almost $500 million being poured into. What does that say about the importance of this seat moving forward in the U.S. Senate?
Well, I think it says a couple things. I touched on one of those, which was it will determine the balance of power in the United States Senate. And Senator Sherrod Brown, someone with a long track record of public service, of supporting Ohioans, whether it be working people, Teamsters, union officials, Teamsters, mine workers, steel workers, building trades, somebody who really the working class and blue collar have really put their faith in, and he's tremendously helped. But it also says that Sherrod Brown was working on behalf of the people, and that there are folks in Wall Street, the big pharma, the big corporations, quite frankly, that have made him a number one target because at the end of the day, they know that he's standing up for working class people in this state. And so I think that's why we saw so much money come in. Quite frankly, I thought a lot of the attacks were misleading. I don't think Bernie Moreno really ever established himself as a candidate. We don't know much about him, what he stands for. I think he failed to earn the trust of Ohioans, certainly as it relates to how he treated his own employees, raises questions about how he would treat working class people in the state of Ohio. So I think the money had a lot to do with obviously the balance of power in the state, but also because Sherrod Brown is fighting on behalf of the working people in the state. And I think you become a target when you stand up to powerful corporate special interests.
Well, Lou, you mentioned the working class, the unions, everything we've seen up here. The union workers have very much been backing Sherrod Brown. How important are these union workers and whomever is going to win this seat?
Well, I think Senator Brown's work on behalf of people in the Ohio Valley impacts obviously union workers, but also people who aren't in unions. It impacts people who care about the foundation of the economy in eastern and southeastern Ohio and want it to thrive and improve. And anytime there's been an issue where working people have had, whether it be a trade issue, a pension and healthcare issue, whether it be the train derailment in Columbiana County, Senator Sherrod Brown has been somebody that the voters in this state and in eastern Ohio can count on and rely on. He's delivered for them, whether it be 100,000 or more union workers whose pensions he saved, or whether it be him standing up to making sure that we get the fentanyl and the drugs out of this country and working across the aisle to get that accomplished. At the end of the day, regardless of who's in power in the White House, Sherrod Brown is willing to work to do what is best for the people in Ohio. And he's been demonstrated a willingness and the ability to get things done. And so I think if you're going to the polls today, that's something you really have to think about. And I have heard from people who I believe are splitting their tickets, who I believe are very inclined to vote Republican in this presidential election, but very well are going to support Senator Sherrod Brown for the U.S. Senate, and that's encouraging. But we all knew all along that this was going to be an incredibly close race, and so it'll be probably a late night tonight.
Yeah, I think a lot of people around the country are expecting a late night, Lou. One more question before we let you go. I want to ask you about Bernie Moreno compared to J.D. Vance, who ran for Senate just a couple of years ago, obviously. How do you think Moreno has done or did with his campaign in terms of making those relationships with people, ordinary Ohioans, versus J.D. Vance when he, like you said, traveled, and even after he became senator, he was in East Palestine, excuse me, and made
I was
himself.
referring to Sherrod Brown, but I take your point.
Yeah, but to that though, just the comparison between the two.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Dylan. I think I don't know that I'd compare the two, but what I would say is I think that Bernie Moreno as a candidate really never formed a connection with the voters in the state, to my knowledge. I've talked to many Republicans. I don't think he ever did that. What he was able to do was attract a lot of special interest money. And he really didn't talk much about what he would do. And if you ask most Ohioans, I'm not sure they could tell you what his plans are to be a United States senator. He doesn't really have a track record of doing any public service in the state. Really, the only track record he's had is as a private sector employee. And I think that, or a private sector business owner. And I think a lot of questions have been raised about how he's treated his employees as it relates to overtime pay and not paying wages. So I don't think he did a very good job of establishing himself as a candidate in the state. But what I think propped him up, quite frankly, was the national money, the late money that was spent. And so it made it a close race. And of course, the presidential looms somewhat large. I think Sherrod Brown over the years has been very successful, regardless of who's running for the White House. If it's a Democrat or a Republican that wins, wins Ohio, he is able to outperform those candidates. So if it's, Barack Obama winning Ohio, Sherrod Brown has traditionally done better than whatever that candidate has done. Or if it's Donald Trump winning the state of Ohio, I fully expect Sherrod Brown to outperform Kamala Harris in this race. That's because I think he forms a strong connection with voters. He has a strong working class message, goes directly to the people. He has a track record of public service. And I think there'll be a lot of ticket splitters in this race for Senate. That said, we do expect a very close race.
All right, Lou, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure we will be talking to you in the coming days to hear more about the, the results of this race and kind of what happens moving forward. But thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Lou.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So that was Lou Gentile, and some very interesting thoughts and ideas about what's going to go on behind that race, which we will be talking more about coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But before we get into that, we do have Anna Saunders coming up. Anna is from our sister station, WCHS, and she is at the Greenbrier with Governor Jim Justice's camp. Again, Justice is running for that U.S. Senate seat. If we could pull up Anna, that would be awesome. Jordan, our producer, who is keeping things rolling. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, y'all. It's so great to be here. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep. How's everything looking there at the Greenbrier? I imagine based off the fact that Jim Justice called this race for himself about a month ago, I'm guessing things are pretty celebratory, at least leading up to the polls closing.
Yeah, that's right. You said it best. I mean, it is sort of a celebratory environment. They just did the release for the buffet. So big crowd here getting ready to get some grub. But we had Shelley Moore Capito on stage. She was the one who sort of welcomed everyone. We actually just had a chance to speak to her. She was already sort of referring to him as Senator-elect, talking about how they're going to work together. So it has sort of been that mood all night that, he has this in the bag. But of course, the polls have not closed yet. So at the end of the day, we do not know if these balloons will fall from the ceiling until those polls close, until we know what the voters have decided. So we're just kind of waiting and seeing. But as you can tell here, the scene is quite celebratory. All right.
Anna, I would like to ask you about Governor Justice and kind of his approach. He didn't really, compared to his opponent, Glenn Elliott, didn't maybe need to campaign as much. He didn't campaign as much. Instead, he was taking trips to Pennsylvania to campaign on former President Trump's behalf and other races there. Do you think that will have any effect on maybe the amount of votes or percentages, how things shake down tonight?
I mean, we could definitely see that, I'm sure. But as you have pointed out, he has sort of called this race from the beginning. He won pretty heavily in his primary, and I think he expects the same in the general. I know driving here to White Sulphur Springs, that was the first time I had seen a campaign sign from him, and a lot of them are very baby dog focused. So even in this room, it's kind of hard to tell who is really running for Senate because there is a lot of baby dog pictures in this room tonight. So a lot of those signs you saw kind of going into the Greenbrier that said, vote for my dad. So yeah, that's really the only campaign signs I've seen, and that's been one of his bragging points. He said, I really haven't had to put up a campaign sign. I didn't feel the need to do a debate. So not a lot of those traditional things, but of course he does get a lot of the media attention already when he does those economic development announcements, when he does those weekly briefings, and really touting the economic side of things, the tax cuts. I'm trying to figure out this app. There's a big banner about the tax cuts right there. So really sort of touting that side of things. And I think, all of that media attention may be what sort of takes him to the top tonight.
Well, Anna, last question for you. The thing with this race that has really stood out to me, and I just figured it out today, is that if Governor Jim Justice does win this race, it will be the first time that a Republican has held this U.S. Senate seat since 1958. How does that change the landscape, knowing, that Joe Manchin is leaving the Senate, Robert Byrd served for decades? How do you think this could change the political landscape when it comes to this U.S. Senate seat finally being flipped red?
Yeah, I mean, this seat, you got to think about it, this seat has been held by Democrats for more than 6 decades. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, Senator Capito just took the stage, and she seemed to think that the Senate could be at a 50-50 spot. And she felt confident that Donald Trump will win tonight. So she's like, we could have the win there in the Senate if that is the case. Of course, a lot of Senate races to watch tonight in all different states that could be close. So we'll just have to wait and see. But she believes this could make the Senate, 50-50.
All right, Anna, thank you so much. And good luck there tonight. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you tonight at 10 and 11. Have fun.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Anna.
you. So interesting stuff there from that race. It sounds like they are already getting ready to pop the bubbly at the Greenbrier.
Yeah, and to have the current senator, Shelley Moore Capito, there, that's a big endorsement, obviously, a long time ago that people knew that was going to be the case, but for her to be there and be supporting him and to have someone with the tenure that she does in DC to kind of maybe help Governor Justice along if he is elected, that could go a long way for the state of West Virginia in terms of getting support, getting funding, being recognized a little bit more in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. So we will see. Again, polls don't even close till 7:30, but we will see how that race shakes out here, I'm sure, in the next hour and a half. So now we are going to join another friend from our sister station in Charleston, WCHS, Daniel Burbank. He is with Patrick Morrissey's camp. Patrick Morrissey, the current Attorney General of West Virginia, but running to fill that role as the governor of West Virginia. I believe he is I might be incorrect, but I believe is in Martinsburg in the Eastern Panhandle, and he is going to join us as we pull him up here. Hey, Daniel. Hey, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Jamie. Hey, Dylan. That's right. We're here in Martinsburg. You're absolutely right. Even though the room looks a little bit empty, we're in the press section. The party's getting really started here in just about 8 minutes, where the party goers, they have the news that's on. They're keeping a very close eye on this race, especially as those polls close here in the last 10 minutes. There's definitely a lot of anticipation. You could really feel the excitement building here in Martinsburg.
Daniel, as you've been kind of following this race, I know Patrick Morrissey has kind of been in the state spotlight for many years as the Attorney General. Steve Williams was the Democrat that came into this race. He's the mayor of Huntingdon. I can say we saw Steve up in the Northern Panhandle a few times, but I feel as though people up here didn't get a big chance to get to know him. Have you guys seen a little bit more of him down in Charleston in the Huntingdon area? And what was kind of the vibe of this race heading into it, down in a place that he's kind of from, and people may know him a little better?
it definitely feels like maybe Steve Williams has a more logically a likelier chance of having a larger crowd, especially in that Cabell County area. As you push towards closer towards Kanawha, we do have the Capitol, and so Attorney General Patrick Morrisey, who his second home, so to speak, is right there in the U.S. in the West Virginia state capitol. So, I mean, yes, we are seeing that there's some trends that are kind of changing, but I think the biggest I'm at a loss for words here, basically, but I think we saw more people, keeping an eye on the Republican ticket in May, as opposed to now, where more people are paying attention, I think, to Martinsburg here. But one thing that he's been reiterating is that he's been here since 2006 in the Northern Panhandle, and this is really his territory in a way, and so that is a big reason why. The campaigns have been and the watch parties have been held up here, not only just for the big election night, but also for the primary as well. And so I think there's definitely that anticipation as well, Jamie, as we get closer to when those polls close.
Daniel, one more for you here before we let you go. I just want to ask in terms of kind of the plan. I'm sure you'll obviously polls haven't even closed yet, so we don't have the official results. But do you guys expect to see Patrick Morrisey this evening at some point?
Yes, they have the stage that's set up. We believe that he's going to do a speech regardless of the results here. So very similar to what happened during the primary. This room is just a little bit bigger here in the historic Roundhouse, which is an old train building, I believe. So it's very large warehouse. We're actually here in, so they have sort of a train theme that's going on here with some of the, I think that's smoke, cotton balls that they made there. So definitely a theme here, keeping with the history up in this portion of the state here. So we're going to anticipate and see what happens. Obviously, we have no idea when those final results are going to come in and when the Associated Press is going to call it. So we're keeping an eye on that, and that's something that we'll definitely be talking with you all later on this evening.
All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck tonight. And again, we'll probably hear from you tonight at 10 and 11. So good luck out there tonight.
Cheers. Good to talk to you all.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's a look at some of the statewide federal races in the state of West Virginia. So definitely right now, again, polls close in about 4 minutes, but looks like the Republican side of things is feeling pretty good about their chances early tonight.
Yeah, and that was kind of expected going into things in West Virginia, and specifically with that governor's race and the Senate race. But, another race in West Virginia is the Attorney General race, and that's up for grabs. Teresa Torres-Seva from Wheeling, and she's going up against J.B. McCuskey. And that's going to be an interesting one to see how that shakes out as well. So, again, a lot of changing of the guard, I think, is the term that you've used, Jamie, leading up to the election in West Virginia. And it'll have a difference. Even if the party might stay the same in some aspects, there's a chance that, new ideas, new thoughts for the Mountain State are brought forth.
Well, we are going to bring in our next guest, who is very familiar with the political landscape of West Virginia. Erica Storch was a delegate for many, many years, has stepped away from the state government here, but still has a very good idea of the way things look. So we are going to bring in Erica to talk a little bit about just some of the races we're seeing in West Virginia and kind of what to expect once things shake out. Erica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, Dylan.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
So, Erica, I know we still have about 3 minutes before polls close, but we just heard from folks at the Morrisey camp and folks at the Justice camp. It sounds like our Republican candidates are pretty much ready to accept victory here within the next 30 or so minutes. For you, what have you been kind of hearing from folks within the Republican Party about what we can expect to see results-wise tonight?
I think everyone's accurate in expecting a bigger than average red wave. I have heard people say that we were kind of denied the wave in 2020 for whatever reason. That didn't really lay out as everyone had expected that one to be. But I think many people do expect this election cycle will be very successful for Republican candidates.
Erica, I want to ask about the attorney general race in particular. You know, Patrick Morrissey became very well known for fighting big pharma, delivering some big money to the state in opioid settlements. Do you see, regardless of if it's Torreseva or McCuskey winning, do you see that kind of continuing, that fight for that, considering the drug epidemic that the Mountain State faces?
Yes, I believe, especially if it were to be JB McCuskey, if he were to be the successful candidate, I think JB works very closely and has worked very closely with Attorney General Morrissey. So I would expect that would continue. And similarly for Teresa, because she is right in kind of the heart of the area that has been affected and afflicted by these drugs. And I think she has that that ability to be a successful litigator. So I can see her as well pursuing that if she were to be the successful candidate.
Well, Erica, we will also be seeing a new congressional representative tonight. Things looking pretty good again for Republican Riley Moore. This is a seat that has been held either by David McKinley or Alex Mooney for many, many years. Have you had a chance to really work with Riley very much? And what do you think he could bring to the seat if elected?
So I did serve with Riley in the House for the term that he served in the House of Delegates. He was great to work with. He was very passionate. He kind of jumped in really ready to go. And there wasn't, that traditional learning curve did not hold him back. And, he has been our treasurer for the last few election cycles, and he has been successful with that. And I think the nice thing about if Riley were to be our successful candidate for our congressional district, his family originated in the Northern Panhandle, and he grew up in the Eastern Panhandle, but he knows the Northern Panhandle's here, and I think he would then make sure to be present in the Northern Panhandle. We got a little bit spoiled when Congressman McKinley was our representative because he came from the Northern Panhandle. So he knew where we are, what our needs are, what our concerns were. And that was really beneficial to the district, or at least to this part of the district. But unfortunately, I think the last couple of years, we haven't really had that same level of representation. So I'm excited to have Riley, who is very familiar with the Northern Panhandle.
And Erica, polls just closing 45 seconds ago in West Virginia. NBC News is already calling the race for Donald Trump. So that is 3 electoral votes. Yes, I mean, that was within 30 seconds of the polls closing. So that race has already been, and they are just now calling Jim Justice as well. So a minute and 4 seconds after the polls closed, they are calling the races for Donald Trump and for Jim Justice. Jim Justice winning that race flips a Senate seat red. What does that mean?
Well, if nothing else changes, the Republicans have the majority in the Senate. So I think there will be some other things change, but, for right now, we can hold on to that.
Absolutely. And then just looking back in the state, we're going to keep our eyes on this Patrick Morrissey race. First time that we will have a new governor in the state of West Virginia in 8 years. I know whenever something changes, whether it's, even if they're part of the same political party, certain things do change. What kind of differences do you see between Jim Justice and Patrick Morrissey, if elected, that, you could kind of see if Morrissey becomes governor?
Well, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him. We've gotten kind of, again, spoiled with having the same governor over the last 8 years. Every legislative session, every year when he prepared his budget, he got to be familiarized with how that process happened and how to work with legislative leadership. So, there's going to be a learning curve for a new governor. And, if that would be Attorney General Morrissey, there will be that learning curve of the nuances within the legislative leadership team, where there's going to be a huge change in legislative leadership on the Senate side because the Senate president was defeated during the primary cycle. So a new Senate president will be elected within that senatorial caucus in December. So, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. There will be some placement. The new governor will have to seat his cabinet. We'll have to name his cabinet members, and then, so that'll take a little bit of time, which is what will lead to the legislative session starting in February in 2025 instead of the traditional January session start.
I do want to get in one more question with you before we let you go. With this news of Jim Justice securing that Senate seat, he developed a likability in West Virginia. Of course, Baby Dog, it was everyone's favorite dog in America. But how do you think that likability or success that he had in West Virginia translates to Washington, D.C.?
Well, I think the governor, our new senator-elect, is in for a whole different world, as is Baby Dog. I don't know if Baby Dog is going to like it quite as much as she seems to do with embracing the people of West Virginia. The people of West Virginia will always embrace Baby Dog, but I just don't know that she will have quite the same level of free reign as she has in West Virginia, and nor will the governor. You know, it's a very different city from Charleston. It's not necessarily easily walkable. Not necessarily easily walkable to maneuver around on the Capitol complex. So that campus can be a little challenging. So I'm not entirely sure if Baby Dog will be able to accompany him as much as he would hope or would like to have her around him. So it's going to be an interesting transition for him, but I'm sure he's up for the challenge.
And Erica, I am going to ask you one more quick question. This will be the first time in a long time that Joe Manchin has not been involved in the political landscape of West Virginia. What can you say about the impact that he has left as somebody? I know you've worked with him a lot over the years. What can you say about what Joe Manchin has done in his time, whether in the Senate, as governor, or anything else?
Well, he has dedicated his life to public service, but I wouldn't necessarily rule him out as being out of public service. Maybe not political public service. You know, he may not be on a ballot, but I don't think he's going away quite that easily.
I would not be surprised to see him pop back up again as well. Erica, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All right, so we saw that it happened fast there. I mean, those polls closed, and I looked. It was 7:30 when they called Donald Trump for West Virginia, which I don't believe is a surprise to anybody in the state. So that is 4 more electoral votes going towards Donald Trump early.
Yeah, in addition to West Virginia closing at 7:30, Ohio closing at 7:30 as well. Nothing called there yet. And North Carolina, too. We talked about those swing states at the top of the show, Jamie. And North Carolina is one of those states that after the devastation from Hurricane Helene, a lot of people didn't even know if they were going to be able to make it to their polling place to vote. So that has kind of become, North Carolina quickly, or was a swing state, but has quickly become kind of a focal point of this election, especially in the last week for both the presidential candidates.
Oh, absolutely. And it is very interesting to kind of see, I feel like for years we've talked about Ohio being a swing state. And while the focus has very much been on this Bernie Moreno, Sherrod Brown race, when you look at the presidential election, Ohio hasn't even been in the conversation this year.
No, and I think that just goes to show, I mean, Sherrod Brown has been, and I'm not just saying this has been said by people on both sides. He's the only Democrat really left standing in Ohio. And if he were to lose tonight, I think that kind of seals the deal in terms of a red flip for Ohio. I mean, it would be, years in the making that it took because it happened, in increments, of course.
Yep.
But I mean, that's a good point. It went from one point being blue to being swing, and now we see it red. So interesting point to bring up there for sure, Jamie.
Yes. And I'm looking at Twitter. If I am looking at my computer, it's just to keep up. We have a list of folks that we're following throughout the night. Daniel Burbank, who we just heard from a few minutes ago, just tweeted a minute ago that the Associated Press has declared Patrick Morrisey as West Virginia's next governor. So all of the big races in the state declared before 7:38 when polls closed at 7:30. So definitely a red C for this. And then Anna Saunders says she is at the Jim Justice camp, says that the race has been called. It was just announced at the watch party there. So yes. That was kind of why I wanted to talk to some of our West Virginia folks early, because those were some early ones, as you mentioned, a very different approach between Jim Justice and Glenn Elliott in that race. I covered Glenn for many years as a Wheeling reporter when he was the Wheeling mayor. Glenn spent time going to every single one of the state's 55 counties to try to make a push, and just gave it a great go. But yeah, Jim Justice, I think, was very, very prepared for that one and seemed to pull away pretty easily.
He was, and he did. But I think Erica made a good point. That's how the people of West Virginia felt.
Yes.
And Governor Jim Justice felt that he didn't need to campaign. He was able to put a few signs with baby dog up and be okay. But she's the one, she said it, and I think it rings true that there's going to be a little bit of a wake up call going from Charleston to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Not saying that he's not up to the challenge, because he, as she said, a lot of economic development, a lot of good in the Mountain State. But I think it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for Governor Jim Justice.
Absolutely. And Jordan, I'm going to ask that you pull up. We have a state-by-state map of what states have been going for the presidential candidates. Still very, very early in this one. And I think it is safe to say, Dylan, I would be shocked to hear a winner. I don't think we will hear one tonight before we get off air. But, we are going to be keeping a close eye on this. This is one of the closest presidential elections when it comes down to the way these two candidates polled, probably in history.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And when you look state by state, it's neck and neck in Pennsylvania. It's neck and neck in North Carolina. Those are two of the states. Georgia is going to play a big factor.
Yes.
Again, we keep talking about these swing states, but when you really look at the numbers, and it's shown in different races too. It's not only is the presidential race in Pennsylvania tight, we're hearing the Senate race is very tight in Pennsylvania too. And so I think it just goes to show, talked about all the money being put in, all the advertising, all that work over really the last 8 to 12 months, and it all culminates. And yeah, you might not, I would be shocked. I would agree with you, Jamie. If we see a winner tonight, I would be stunned. No insight or background. I would say it would be probably Friday or Saturday. Yeah,
I would guess late week as well. That's what we saw in 2020. Now, granted, 2020 was a very different beast of an election.
True.
But we might hear earlier there was historic early voting turnout.
Right.
I was listening to NBC News before we came on. They were saying at some universities in central and eastern Pennsylvania, there was a 7-hour wait today for people to go vote. So it should be interesting.
It should be. And that's good to point out too, Jamie. It's a part of the democracy. It's a part of your civic duty to go and vote. So to see those higher turnouts, to see early voting numbers at record highs in some states, I think it goes to show that people do care. They know that it has an impact on them. And whether you're voting on one issue or 4 or 5, people seemed like they, went out and voted. And yeah, it can be frustrating. We don't have the winner right away. We're not going to have it tonight. But maybe in the long run, you think about things, and maybe it's a good thing because people were going out and voicing what they believe in.
Absolutely. I went to the polls today. I went for a run beforehand. They probably thought I looked like a wreck, but hey, I voted. I may not have smelled very good while I did it, but I did it.
You voted.
So I'm pretty pumped about that.
Did you get a sticker?
I did. That's why I like to vote on the day of.
That's
I love getting the sticker,
which
is
the best
ridiculous, but I love it. I love going in there, doing what I'm going to do, and getting my sticker. That's an adrenaline rush for me. I love it.
I voted by mail. I didn't get a sticker. I was sad.
I would have brought you one. I would ask if I could get 2, Dylan. I'm sorry.
Sometimes they're tight. They keep those stickers under wraps, though. You don't want to cause any ruckus over a sticker.
That would be interesting. Well, as much as we've been talking about some of these statewide races here for the first 40 minutes of this, if you are just joining us, welcome into our election night decision 2024 on the go show here, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, our website, whatever you've got. But now we are going to kind of make a switch for the next 20 minutes and talk to some of our reporters who are out and about in the field. Before we start getting to them, I just want to mention the folks we do have out there because they are busting their butts tonight, and make sure you're following them on everything to make sure you're getting the latest updates on numbers. So we have Hannah Hayes in Hancock County, Olivia Zinn in Ohio County, Jessica Riley in Jefferson County, Jesse Kane in Belmont County, Skylar Sabansky in Harrison County, Bill Steinbach in Brooke County, and Claire O'Neill in Marshall County. So again, our folks are out there on the ground getting the numbers as quickly as they can to make sure we're keeping you updated. So with that, we are going to bring in our Hannah Hayes, who, as I mentioned, is in Hancock County. She's getting ready a very interesting race in Weirton for mayor. Now, they have 4 candidates. One's the current mayor. One used to be a mayor. One's a current councilwoman, and another is a resident who wants some change. So we're going to bring in Hannah Hayes and talk a little bit about that race. Hannah, how's it going out there?
Hey, Jamie. Yeah, I'm currently here at the Hancock County Board of Elections. Now, polls did close about 10-15 minutes ago at 7:30, so there are no updated, results as of now. I will be here following it the rest of the night. But just as a reminder, like what you said earlier, I'll be covering the Weirton mayoral race with Harold Miller, the incumbent. We have Dean Harris, who's a former mayor, Flora Perone, who's a councilwoman as of now, and George Village. Also, I'll be covering the West Virginia House of Delegate District 2 with the incumbent Mark Zeteslow, as well as a recent 2024 West Virginia University grad, Olivia Dowler, and the Hancock County Sheriff race, which is incumbent Scott Giddings and Dezo Polgar. Now, just as a reminder for you guys, follow the News 9 social media, Facebook and X platform. But as of right now, reporting in Hancock County, I'm Hannah Hayes, and back to you.
Hannah, I was gonna say before we drop you, we want to ask you some questions. We want to give you some time, girl. I don't want to lose you quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah, you've been out. You spoke to some of these candidates. You did a few delegate previews. What are some of the things that they talked about that are important to the Northern Panhandle?
Yeah, so for example, Olivia Dowler, she really wanted to focus on bringing food to the area. She feels like this is a zone where there are a lot of Dollar Generals in the area, and there isn't actual like fresh meat, fresh produce. And then, let me think here, Scott Giddings, he pointed out a lot of the things that he's done so far. He's getting a lot of money federally funded. He's bringing money in from out of the state. He's not using, Hancock County funds. So he's very proud of that. Dezo Polgar, he mentioned that he wanted to be a working sheriff, and he wants to hold his men very accountable. He mentioned honesty and a bunch of things such as that. He's very excited.
Now, I do want to ask Hannah. I know there's also a few seats up for grabs with Weirton City Council, but with Flora running for mayor, I know there's a few current council members that have a lot of years under their belt that are leaving. What have you kind of seen with this mayoral race, and how do you think things can kind of shift a little bit? I mean, we could be seeing the same mayor again. We could be somebody who's been on council for a while, somebody who already was mayor. This could be kind of an interesting turnout for folks in that area.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that they were talking about, a lot of them want to beautify the city. That was a main thing that all of them had in common. George Village, he even mentioned that he wanted to kind of save the steel industry. Harold Miller, he mentioned also some of the things that he's done, also beautifying the city, bringing businesses in, bringing people in. When the people come in, that's when businesses come in.
For sure. Well, Hannah, thank you so much. I am so glad for you guys that it is does not feel like November 5th out there. I know it's a little more comfortable than we've seen in years past. So just stay safe out there. And Hannah, if you want to give everybody your Twitter handle, or I could give it to them in case people want to follow you for some results.
Yeah. So my Twitter handle, sorry about that, will be Hayes_Hannah or Hannah_Hayes WTOV9. And that's the same thing with my Facebook, Hannah Hayes, WTOV9.
Awesome. Well, Hannah, stay safe out there, and we will be keeping up with you for all the latest numbers. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Hannah.
All right. So there you hear it. As we mentioned, we've gotten some of the big races kind of in the bag, but a lot of these other ones are not going to be quite in yet. Some of these counties fly out with these results, and some of them take a little bit longer. So make sure you're sticking with these folks as we kind of go through all of this. We do have Olivia Zinn, who has logged on early. So I think we're going to go ahead and bring her in as well. Olivia is covering Ohio County. There's a ton of races happening in Ohio County, but she has also been keeping an eye on a few of those statewide races. And she's also killing the green jacket. Olivia, we are digging the green tonight.
Hey guys, and thank you. I don't know how, but a lot of our reporters, we didn't plan it. I promise you, if you're listening at home, but I promise you, we did not plan the green whatsoever. It just happened to be that way. Some of us wore black, some of us wore green, but I don't know. I like the green, the hunter green. I think it's a nice touch, so I appreciate that. But yeah, as you were saying, there's a number of races here in Ohio County that we've really been following tonight, really following closely, and a number of those are local, but as you were saying, they're also statewide. So let's start with the statewide ones a little bit first and why we localize them here in Wheeling. First is U.S. Senate. So we're following Glenn Elliott, who is running against governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice, and he's running, and he was the Wheeling mayor for about 8 years here. So he's headquartered here, he's lived here, and he's campaigning here. So we're following that, as well as West Virginia Attorney General Teresa Torreseva, who's running for that position. She's running against J.B. McCuskey in that, and she has a number of years, about 3 decades worth of law experience here in the Ohio Valley, specifically in Wheeling. So we'll be following her as well. But to talk about those local races, specifically here in Ohio County, there's 3 that we're following very closely. The first is Ohio County Sheriff, which is Nelson Croft, who is running as a Republican, versus John Haglock as a Democrat. They actually both have really close and a lot of experience in Ohio County law enforcement and have different ideas of what they want to do if they're elected. So we're following that one, as well as West Virginia House of Delegate District 4 and District 5. So let's talk about District 4 a little bit and what that really encompasses. District 4, after West Virginia was redistricted in 2022, it's actually the majority of Ohio County except for the Wheeling area. So Republican Bill Flanagan, there's no incumbent in this race. Republican Bill Flanagan is running in this race against Democrat Jonathan Hott. We were talking a little bit about them earlier and what they're running on. And finally, what we're going to be running on and following tonight is West Virginia Delegate District 5, incumbent Sean Fluharty, who has been in the House of Delegates since 2014. He was a minority whip and has a lot of forward-thinking moves that he wants to bring to Charleston once again. And he's running against newcomer Thomas Sokovic. So we're going to be following that all this evening. And I appreciate you guys having me on this evening for Election Night on the Go, first time ever. So just be sure to follow us here in Ohio County with the latest results. Thanks, guys.
We appreciate you coming on, Olivia. Thank you so much and good luck tonight. And of course, anybody can follow Olivia for those results in Ohio County. Olivia, be safe tonight and we'll see you at 10 and 11.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. We were just informed that Governor Jim Justice has gotten up to give his election victory. They're still waiting for him. Okay, so we're waiting on Governor Jim Justice, who has been called in the race for the U.S. Senate seat, flipping that seat red for the first time since 1958, which is kind of wild to think about. It's a big win for him, but they are getting ready to hear from him. So we are going to kind of pop into that when he does do that. But yeah, this has been a lot of information so far. If we could pull up the list of the electoral map one more time. Again, Jordan, the next set of polls close in about 9.5 minutes. Ohio did close. The polls closed at 7:30. According to our friend Tyler Madden, who's with WKRC, he is covering the Moreno camp. Moreno is up 56%. These are like, at 2% of
Very early
numbers coming in. So take what you will with that. But that is just some early numbers that we are hearing from that. Again, Governor Jim Justice has been called as the next U.S. Senator from the state of West Virginia. So probably not a huge surprise with that one. We're taking a look at the Electoral College map and just kind of looking at some of the states that have gone red and blue. And I think it's fair to say no surprises quite yet.
No, and you can see the real bold ones, the real dark ones, red, dark red, that's what's been called. And then the ones that are lighter, that's their way they are trending right now. So again, it's early. I don't, off the top of my head, know how much percentage of the vote is reported in North Carolina, Georgia, a swing state that has a little bit of a red tint to it right now. North Carolina, a swing state, a little bit of a blue tint to it right now. Those are not final, but when you're looking at that right out of the gate, if you're either campaign, that's one swing state each that you have a little bit of a favor with if you're Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And when you look at the top there, you see that overall electoral college vote that have been confirmed, which we've been keeping you updated on. It still sits at 23 for Donald Trump and 3 for Kamala Harris.
Yes. So we are just kind of seeing how everything is shaking out with that. Again, the ones that are lighter colored have not been called yet. That is what the numbers are looking like. But a lot of these places, polls closed at 7:30. So you aren't often going to see, like you did in West Virginia, where the major races are called within a minute or two of polls closing. So definitely keeping an eye on those. Again, Georgia is one of those swing states in this race. But I think a lot of people believe that presidential election is going to come down to our neighbors in Pennsylvania, Dylan.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what they're saying. Pennsylvania. I mean, and 19 electoral votes. You made this point. You said you found this nugget saying that Pennsylvania has the most electoral votes out of the swing states.
Yes.
And so that shows you why it's most important. Shows you why the candidates spent a lot of time there, specifically yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Both had campaigns on both sides of the state. President Trump was in Reading and then in Pittsburgh, and then Kamala Harris, of course, in Pittsburgh and then Philadelphia to wrap up the night. So spending a lot of time in those states, they say those are the important ones. And it kind of shows why when you look at the number of electoral votes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we said, we are keeping an eye on those as well as some of our local races. We are waiting to see if Governor Jim Justice is going to be stepping to the podium soon. We have a camera shot up and it looks like we are waiting to hear from him. So we are keeping an eye on that. But just going through some of the races, we already know polls just closed in Ohio and West Virginia 23 minutes ago. We do know that Jim Justice is going to be the next U.S. Senator. He did defeat Glenn Elliott. Patrick Morrissey did defeat Steve Williams to be the next governor of West Virginia. So those are some of the big ones we already know. Jordan, if we could just punch up a live look. A lot of folks are cheering at this rally right now to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like at the Greenbrier, which is where the victory party, now a victory party, is being held for Governor Jim Justice. And we are waiting to hear from him about that win. I did do a preview story on that. It was a very different approach by both candidates. Former Wheeling Mayor Glenn Elliott making the trip to all 55 counties throughout the state. Governor Jim Justice told us he didn't even really, Dylan, look, there's a baby dog right there. We got a baby dog cut
we got
out.
a baby dog sign.
Didn't even really put out signs other than in Greenbrier County, mainly pictures of baby dogs saying, vote for my dad. So as you can see, a lot of people at that party. Anna Saunders, who is with our sister station WCHS, said that Shelley Moore Capito came out and spoke with the crowd, said she's looking forward to working with Jim Justice. This is the first time this second Senate seat in West Virginia will be red. Yeah, she's been working with Joe Manchin for a long time, and so this is definitely going to be a change.
A couple other races that I am working to pull up some results on. Got some early ones on my phone, which I could share with, but they were from a few minutes ago. The Ohio 6th District congressional race between Michael Rulli and Michael Kripchak. Talk about a long year campaigning. These two facing off for the second time, but the third race that they had to run. They ran in a special election primary in March, followed up with an election in the special election in June. Michael Rulli wins that to become the next congressman, fulfills the term, but it's only until the end of this year. Has to run again against Michael Kripchak, and that is they are running, or they were running here this year. And so taking a look at the numbers from that early on, I have them here. Okay. Michael Rulli securing 63% of the vote to Kripchak's 37%, of course, unofficial here in the early going. But Rulli, who trailed Kripchak and flip-flopped the lead with Kripchak several times in that special election, now out to a healthy lead. When I spoke with him, had him here to the station to talk, he felt that they lacked a little bit of communication on their end in terms of explaining what that race meant, that it was only there was the primary, there was the race, and then, of course, this one here for this next 2 years. Also, Don Jones looking to retain his seat in the State House, District 95, 72% of the vote to Micah McCarry's 28% of the vote. And Skylar Sabansky is in Harrison County. She's keeping an eye on that race throughout the night. We'll hear from her a little bit later on in tonight's program.
Yes. And speaking of some of these commissioner seats, we have Jessica Riley, who is ready to join us. Jessica is covering Jefferson County tonight, and she is looking at 2 commissioner seats that are coming up for grabs. So we're going to bring her in to talk a little bit about those. Now, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us, first of all. But tell us a little bit about these 2 races you're following.
Yep, 2 commission seats, Jamie and Dylan, that are up for re-election. Now, one of those, we know Dave Maple. He's been in his... I know he's not seeking re-election, so we have 2 new candidates who are hopping in. We have Republican, which is Ron J. Kleinecke. He is running. And then we also have... will be running as a Democrat for Tony Morelli's seat, the incumbent Tony Morelli. And then we also have Charlie Newbern throwing his hat in the ring for that seat against Ron J. 4 of them really looking for economic development, keeping Jefferson County good. And, I spoke to all of them, all 4 of them. You can find that on our website. And we do have a night as far as the results. We're awaiting those in just a few minutes. We should get those early voting and absentee numbers starting to come here at 8, and about every half hour they're going to start up.
Now, Jessica, Dave Maple has been a Jefferson County commissioner for a long time now. You're going to have somebody completely new coming in. We just had Eric Timmons join 2 years ago.
Right.
How does this kind of change the face of the Jefferson County Commission?
You know what? When I'm in the meetings and I hear this, Dave brings so much to them. He has so much information. He's been involved in everything. So I think it's a really challenging spot to really understand what is a commission seat, and to go there and know all the things that are going on in the county. It's really going to look a lot different, being that Dave Maple has really that guy on there, that veteran that sits on that seat.
All right. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to give everybody your Twitter handle so that folks can be following you throughout the night for some of these election results? Or your X.
Sorry.
See, I messed it up too. I called it X. Oh, X. Your X handle.
Is really it's engraved in my brain, guys. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and follow me for all those Jefferson County results, commission race, as well as some levies we have going on, it's going to be J Riley 9. That's J Riley WTOB9. You can follow me. We'll have those latest updates here and on Facebook if you want to follow me on there as well.
All right, Jessica, thank you so much. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Thanks, Jess.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
And that actually ended perfectly on time because we are seeing Jim Justice walk up to, well, there's not a podium, but he is sitting down on his stool. He's got his microphone. And so we are going to tune into Jim Justice's victory speech as he has been declared the winner for the U.S. Senate seat in West Virginia.
7:30. What took him so long? But nevertheless, big honor. There's no question about that. And I thank all of you in every way for standing arm in arm with me every day, and especially arm in arm with my whole family. Now, let me just tell you just 2 or 3 things, and I won't keep you long. But the other night it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I think it was Sunday night, and I was watching We Are Marshall. And in all honesty, big tears were running down my face. You see, Kathy and I were there. We were there in the dorm the night the plane went down. We were there, chanting We Are Marshall, at the president's office, because we were really concerned we were going to lose the whole football program because nobody wanted to play. We were there when all the people had left at the Xavier game because we didn't want to leave. Nobody wanted to leave. And literally, if you'll just step back and think, from the ashes, I think this is right, from the ashes we rise. And there's a fellow here, Coach Bob Pruitt, and some way, somehow, he shepherded us to national championships. And wherever he is, I want you to give him a big round of applause because you see, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. To this very day, I'm watching that movie and big alligator tears are running down my face. It was tough. It was really tough. Now, with all that being said, how this all ties is just this. If you think of the contributions that our vets have given all across this nation to the wars and wars and wars that we continue to win and prevail in and everything, and they stepped up, all those from West Virginia. All absolutely think about the floods and the National Guard and how they stepped up for all of us. West Virginians are the best of the best. and I love them with all my soul. Now, I can tell you just this. 8 years ago, when I walked in the door as your governor, things were pretty doggone tough. In fact, they were impossible tough and nowhere to turn. And I truly believe that God above blessed me beyond belief because we made the right decisions and we pushed the right buttons. And with all that being said, some way, somehow, these unbelievable deficits turned absolutely to surpluses. And then all of a sudden, the world started to awaken to just how unbelievable this state was. 26 or 27 tax cuts over those years. Tourism exploded. Highways, unbelievable beyond belief. All the goodness that you could possibly imagine. We did it. And how we did it, we pulled the rope together. All of you with me. And all of us pulled the rope and did what we could do in every way together. There was a little 19-year-old boy that was absolutely fighting Sonny Liston and absolutely fighting for the World Heavyweight Championship. He was Cassius Clay at the time, and he won. He knocked out Sonny Liston and won. And then what he said is, I shook up the world. Well, I will tell you just this with all in me. You shook up the world. We shook up the world. We did. And now the challenges are unbelievable with what's going on in D.C. You may say to me, well, why in the world would you do this? Have you lost your mind? That's probably a very, very good assumption. But with all that being said, think right now, right this minute, somewhere in the world, there's a little girl or boy, they're hiding behind a rock, and somebody's shooting at them, and they're eating out of a can. And they're willing to do it for us. So really and truly, at the end of the day, yeah, I'm willing. I'm willing to stand up and do it right. And you may say, well, what about America? And we are divided like you can't imagine. It's a food fight all the time between Republicans and Democrats, absolutely all the time. Who's going to one-up one another? We've gotten to where we can't even talk to one another. Washington is completely dysfunctional. So if you were to come to Jim Justice,
All right, and you were just listening to Governor Jim Justice, who has been declared the next U.S. Senator from the state of West Virginia. So Jim Justice giving his victory speech here at 8:05, just 35 minutes after the polls closed. While we are talking about West Virginia, our good friend Bill Steinbach tweeted just about 4 minutes ago, we have some early and absentee voting numbers in Brooke County in. We are looking at a county commission race between A.J. Thomas and Darren Pizer right now. And again, this is just early and absentee voting. A.J. Thomas with 63% of the vote. Darren Pizer with 37% of the vote. For Brooke County Sheriff, early and absentee voting, Richard Beatty currently with 61% of the vote, while Richard Ferguson has 39% of the vote. And for House of Delegates, 3rd District, Jimmy Willis with 70% of the vote, and David Cantrell with 30%. Again, this is just early and absentee voting numbers in Brooke County, but those are some of the first numbers we have been seeing throughout the night, other than some of these big races. So we will check in with Bill in just a little bit, but those are some numbers for you right off the bat.
Yeah, and to continue with the number theme, brief update on the presidential race. Nothing that we didn't expect to see with some of these states that have been called after the polls closed at the 8 o'clock hour. President Trump now with 90 electoral college votes. Vice President Kamala Harris with 27. Trump getting states like Tennessee as expected. Harris picking up 20 electoral votes in Maryland. So kind of just those states that you kind of know which way they're going to go ahead of time are being called pretty much instantaneously after the polls are closing.
And again, like you said, this is nothing that wasn't expected. The 7 swing states, 3 of them numbers are in, but it's too early to call. So we will be kind of keeping up on those. But again, Trump with 90 electoral votes, Harris with 27. Again, these are all states that we knew would go red or blue. So no big surprises quite yet, Dylan Cleland.
No, not quite yet. Some of these swing states, like we said, things are trickling in, but it's going to be a very slow trickle, maybe more like a drip.
Yeah.
Over the next several hours. But I do think we have some maps to take a look at, some breakdown of some statewide races. Jordan is going to pull those up for us here.
We're looking at WTOV9.com, one of my favorite resources that everybody should be using, in my opinion.
And I'll tell you what, this map is pretty sweet. You can break it down. We're looking at the Senate race right now. Sherrod Brown, I might need some.
I was going to say, I need some glasses with the way we have these down.
But 51% of the vote for Sherrod Brown right now to about 46%, if I'm reading that correctly, for Bernie Moreno, with around, that's too small. Jordan, AP says how much of the votes reported there? Can you see on your screen? It's a little bit bigger than mine. 23%. Thank you. I was really squinting here. It wasn't happening. But so again, about 20% of the vote in Ohio. That's what we're looking at for the Senate race. We can also take a look at some other races, including the U.S. House District 6 race that we mentioned in Ohio. Michael Ruley with the lead in that one, but Michael Kripchak with the lead in Mahoning County. Mahoning County, of course, holding a big chunk of the people that vote on this race. It played a role in the special election between these two, so it's interesting to keep an eye on that throughout the evening as well. Taking a look now as we continue on with some other maps. State Senate, Brian Chavez, the incumbent who was appointed to the seat after Frank Hoagland resigned from State Senate District 30 in Ohio, going up against Iva Faber. No results in for that one yet. Those still being counted throughout State District 30. This is State House now. State House race, incumbent Don Jones, of course, covers Belmont, Ohio mostly, and of course some further south as well.
Gets down all the way to Athens County. I had a conversation. It is a huge, very oddly shaped area that he covers.
And his opponent, Micah McCary from Athens County, serves on Athens Council, has the lead in Athens County right now. But the rest of things right now going Don Jones' way. That race at about 56 to 40 or 58 to 42%.
Athens County is one of those counties you will see a sea of red and a dot of blue. Athens County usually tends to go more Democratic because there is a college,
Ohio University
campus. Yeah, that is the large chunk of population there. So that is one that you can probably expect to see blue, while you're going to be seeing a lot of red throughout the state of Ohio.
Very good note to make. And so that's kind of an update on some of those statewide races in Ohio that we're taking a look at. Of course, Riley Moore running for Congress on the West Virginia side. And another one of those races that I think people were probably expecting to go Republican. I don't think they've called that one yet.
Let me take a look.
See if we can check on that. But again, Riley Moore kind of expected to maybe pull away with that one at some point this evening as well. About 20 minutes to another round of another round of polls close around the country.
It looks like with 10% of precincts reporting in West Virginia, Riley Moore has 61% of the vote to Steve Wendelin's 39%. Again, that is only 10% of the precincts of the state reporting. So too early to call anything on that one. Also looking at the Attorney General's race in West Virginia, that one does have some local interest with lawyer Teresa Torreseva in the Democratic side of that. Right now, this is with 6% of precincts reporting. JB McCuskey has 64% of the vote, Teresa Torreseva with 36% of the vote. So just looking at some of those, we are looking at NBC News, polls getting ready to close in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. They have already closed in places like Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina. So some of the big states that folks are keeping an eye on, many of which we may not have results from super fast.
Very possible. Jordan, could you pull that electoral college map back up, just because it is interesting to see when the votes start to come in? Not that those states aren't called, but you have the tint one way or another. You can start to maybe see how something might trend. I'd be curious to see after Pennsylvania closed. Okay, so there you go. You look at it, and now briefly, Ohio turns light blue and Pennsylvania light blue. Michigan, a swing state as well, light blue right now, along with North Carolina. So See, it's very early in the night.
Yes,
You don't want to
can change.
You can't say one way or another.
Georgia's kind of pink.
Right.
So yeah, they're saying all of these are still way too close to call. So we are going to be waiting on these for a while. Hopefully everybody has been hitting up their caffeine, because this has been it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, it is going to be a long night, and we're going to carry you through for as much of it as we can.
Heck
and
yeah.
Try to keep you updated. Of course, we'll have the typical shows tonight, News 9 at 10 on Fox, 9 at 10 o'clock. Check in on all those local races, and then again on News 9 tonight as well. You'll want to tune in for that on WTOV 9 and Fox 9.
Oh, and we do have an update in Brooke County. We have 5 of 21 precincts reporting, and this is also all early and absentee reporting. So Richard Beatty, the current sheriff, with 62% of the vote, as opposed to Democrat Richard Ferguson, who was the sheriff prior to Beatty. He has 37% of the vote. In the county commission race, AJ Thomas with 62% of the vote, Darren Pizer 38% of the vote, and in the House of Delegates race, Jimmy Willis with 71% of the vote, David Cantrell with 29% of the vote. Had to do the math on that one. So again, that's 5 of 21 precincts reporting in Brooke County, plus early and absentee reporting. So nothing totally set just yet. But yeah, so things are starting to move along. And, a race we've talked a ton about tonight has been that U.S. Senate seat. That could change the tides for whomever is going to be the next president. We have a very, very good friend covering the Bernie Moreno side of things. Our good friend Tyler Madden, he was a reporter with WTOV 9 for a long time. He is at the Moreno camp in Cleveland. We're going to bring him in to talk a little bit about kind of what he's seeing up there in Cleveland. Tyler, we're so glad to have you on here.
What's up? We can't hear.
Oh, Tyler, we're going to need your audio. Wait. This is the beauty of live.
Yes, live television.
Oh, we got you. There he is. Oh, now he's gone.
Oh.
No luck. We might have to come back to Tyler. We're going to figure this out, Tyler. We'll come back to you here in about 2 minutes.
Oh, wait, Tyler.
Oh, we got you. We got you. You're good.
I thought he was holding us up a sign. All right, we'll
come back to Tyler. Yeah, we got to figure out that audio issue. The joy of live TV.
Yeah, and Tyler is again. He's in Westlake, where the Bernie Moreno campaign is. Sherrod Brown's campaign headquarters tonight in Columbus, and so spread out all across the Buckeye State as they await these results from this Senate race. And we actually have a. This is interesting in a swing state to make mention of.
Yes.
Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina, was term limited, and so a new governor, Democrat, has won in North Carolina. So if that's any indication, or if you buy anything into that for how the state might go, that's kind of interesting to see that.
Absolutely. It looks like we are working on Tyler Madden's stuff. Apparently, Baby Dog did make it onto the stage at Jim Justice's rally, in case anybody was wondering. Here we go. Yes, they are projecting the new governor of North Carolina, John Stein, to be a Democrat. This is an interesting state because I think a lot of people, there's been a lot of eyes on North Carolina since the hurricane. Okay, so we are going to try Tyler Madden again here, see if we can hear him this time.
Guys, nothing like live TV. Is that better?
There he is.
It's great, isn't it?
Tyler, thank you so much for joining us.
It's good to be with you guys. I had to run on you in a second. The lieutenant governor's here, so we just chatted with him for a few minutes.
Oh, very, very good. Very good. How's the lieutenant governor and the rest of the folks there feeling about the Bernie Moreno campaign?
They're feeling very good, pitching that idea of Moreno being that outsider candidate that hasn't been in politics before. They feel that resonates in this race. So they're feeling good here. They're celebrating here in Westlake.
We talked to Lou Gentile a short time ago, and he said that the Democrats and Sherrod Brown were feeling a similar sentiment. I think it goes to show how close this race could potentially be tonight, Tyler.
I think you look at the polling as we saw throughout the summer, and there was kind of a little bit of a lead that Brown had. Of course, you expect the incumbent has that name recognition. Sherrod Brown's been in the United States Senate for a number of years and been in government here in Ohio for decades. And now you go to this race here, and Moreno, it's pretty impressive the way I think he's been able to battle throughout this year.
Well, just to give some updated numbers from what we're seeing, this is super early, 1% of precincts reporting. But right now, Sherrod Brown with 49% of the vote, Bernie Moreno with 48% of the vote. So needless to say, I think this one is going to come down to the wire. Tyler, what would you say the vibe is at the party? Are people feeling like Moreno has this wrapped up, or are you feeling a little bit of nerves throughout the crowd?
I think the folks are feeling pretty good. I think we look at how tight the presidential race is here in a number of those states that are within the margin of error, but a number of them leaning toward the former president. I think that they're banking on those voters here in Ohio. We expect former President Trump to take Ohio by a decent number. Now, what that number is, I think, might affect the turnout. And then I think that they're hoping that big win will then mean a big win for them as well. They're not happy about something here in Westlake. I don't know what it is, but
a lot of action.
Yes. Well, we were going to say something we've talked about a lot in this race. Almost $500 million was poured into this race. When you look at something like this, as somebody who has covered this race, what has kind of been your takeaway about just how important this U.S. Senate seat from Ohio truly is in the grand scheme of things?
I think we look at that 51-49 margin. I think Jim Justice, who was up a few minutes ago before I came up here, I think everybody knew that seat was going to go to him from the beginning. So he really only needs that one seat to get to that even point. And so I think it's that emphasis, the one in the Dakotas too, with John Tester, another race that everybody's watching as well. And so I think when we look at it, cost billions of dollars to run and win to become president of the United States. I think it was just a matter of time before everything trickles down here. What was it, close to $500 million? I think everybody agrees every other ad was for this Senate race in Ohio. Over the summer and then into especially the last few weeks. 4 out of the last 5 would be about that. So I think it's just that push to get people at different screens, YouTube, also on television, just trying to get that message out there.
Tyler, you covered J.D. Vance very closely during his Senate run and eventually winning that seat of Rob Portman. How would you compare or contrast Moreno as a candidate to Vance as a candidate?
I think it's two different races. I think too, because you have Brown, who has that tremendous name recognition. When you had Vance going up against Tim Ryan, who we knew him being in Steubenville because he was the congressman from the Youngstown area. But I don't know if he had that same name recognition that we saw Brown have, of course, from being in office for decades. And so I think Moreno kind of trying to use those ads to get that message out there, I think was a big part of getting those advertisements out there as well. But I think you have to approach it from a completely different perspective because of the opponent that you were facing.
And then, Tyler, just another update. Again, we're now at 77 precincts out of 8,900 reporting, still at 1%, but it's 49% to 49%. Do you see this kind of being the neck and neck as we continue to go throughout the night, or do you see where there might be a county or an area that might pull one way for somebody?
I was talking to a political science professor at the University of Cincinnati yesterday for a story of the questions I was asking him was, where are we going to be 24 hours from now? So where are we going to be Tuesday night at 10 o'clock? And so the first thing that he said to me is he believes that we'll know who the next senator from Ohio will be by the time we all go to bed tonight. So that was one of the big things that he said, unless it's a razor thin margin, but he expects that we'll know who's going to win by the end of the night tonight. And then the other thing he said was, which was kind of surprising when I saw the returns, he was telling me the Democrats usually get that early vote strong off the front, and then Republicans bank on getting those same day votes. And then the Democrats hope whatever they lose from the Republicans, they can gain on the back half, because the biggest challenge in Ohio is counting votes in Cleveland and Hamilton County and Cincinnati, where we are, just some of those big cities, because there's so much more people. And so I think that was kind of a surprising thing to see. But I agree, just the amount of money that's been poured into this race, and that this is really, I think, a seat that the Republicans think they might be able to sneak away and get that majority back. They're hoping, at least I know all the people behind me are hoping that's what happens.
All right. Well, Tyler, thank you so much. I know you have a busy night, so good luck, and we will hopefully be hearing from you later tonight on News 9.
I think we're going to see you guys at 10:15, right?
That's what we like to hear.
It's awesome.
Awesome.
All right, Tyler, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tyler.
Bye.
Tyler brings up an interesting point. I think historically that numbers have swung toward the Democrats in many places because Democrats have spent a lot more time in the early voting or the mail-in voting. But this year we're seeing absolutely historic numbers from both sides. Even Republicans were encouraging folks to go out and early vote this year, which is something we have not seen as much in the past.
And I think 2020 played a role in that, Jamie.
Yes.
I think they saw how the results came out and they said, we need to embrace this idea.
Yep.
And they did. And it showed in early voting numbers and absentee ballots and mail-in ballots. So taking kind of that, when you look at it, you may have said before the Democrats had an advantage with that aspect of it.
Yep.
That might kind of go away a little bit this year with the early voting.
Yes. And these have been absolutely historic early voting numbers from both sides of the aisle. So this might be something we see kind of becoming a new trend, or maybe seeing more of in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to look at kind of an update on the numbers as it stands for the presidential race, we do see Trump with 99 electoral votes and Kamala Harris with 27. They're saying Virginia, still too early to call. Harris with the lead in that one. But a lot of these swing states still very much too early to call. They're saying, Ohio, 50% to Kamala Harris, 49.3% to Donald Trump. Pennsylvania, still way too early to call. So a
lot of races too early to call. Ohio, it's early, but that's surprising. You see, we're talking about that red wave that's kind of come through Ohio. A little bit surprising to see that. And then Georgia, too close to call as well. Former President Trump with 55% of the vote there. Kamala Harris, 44%. That's with 50% of the vote in Georgia already, which seems...
Somebody had said that they were expecting to get their count done a little bit quickly. Yes. So before we head to our next reporter, I do just want to read, we have some results rolling in from some of our reporters across the Ohio Valley. Hannah Hayes is in Hancock County, and she is looking at some of the numbers. I'm going to look at the race for the next mayor of Weirton. We do not know just how, these are absentee early voting in 5 precincts. So right now with the lead in the mayoral race is Harold Miller, who is the current mayor. Right behind him, there is only a 20-vote difference, is Dean Harris. Dean is a former mayor. And then about 130 votes behind him with 517 is Flora Perone, a current councilwoman. So that is a race that we are definitely keeping an eye on. For Hancock County Sheriff, Scott Giddings with an early lead. He's got 3,600 votes to Dezo Polgar's 2,100. So that is one that we are seeing. And then when we are looking at the House of Delegates first district, you haven't heard us talk about that. That's because Pat McGeehan is unopposed. Pat McGeehan will come out of that district again. Right now, early numbers, Mark Tesla with 888 votes to Olivia Daller's 495. Then we also have some numbers from Ohio County. Oh, this is sideways. So please excuse me as I twist my head to try to see these for you guys. Taking a look right now, these are just 5 of 36 precincts reporting. Bill Flanagan has the lead on Johnny Hott for the House of Delegates 4th District. Sean Fluharty has a slight lead on Tom Sukovic for 5th District. For Sheriff, Nelson Croft has 54% of the vote, while John Haglock, has 45% of the vote. And those are some of the numbers we're seeing out of Ohio County. And then just one more page I want to get to before we get to our good friend Skylar Sabansky. 14 of 21 precincts now reporting in Brooke County. Brooke County is pounding out these numbers right now, and I like it. A.J. Thomas has really increased his lead. He's now got about 2,000 more votes than Darren Pizer. Richard Beatty now up to 65% of the vote for sheriff, and Jimmy Willis up to 72% of the vote for the House of Delegates District 3. So those are just some updated numbers we are seeing out in the field. So speaking of being out in the field, our good friend Skylar Sabansky is in Harrison County, Ohio, and she is following a few races out there, including commissioner and 95th district of Ohio. So we're going to bring her in and talk a little bit about what she is seeing so far tonight. Hi, Skylar. How you doing?
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hello. Good.
So I haven't gotten any results just yet. They're currently bringing in the ballots from different polling locations. But just like all the other reporters did, I'll be telling you who I am covering tonight. Like you just said, the 95th Congressional District, which is incumbent Don Jones and Micah McCary. And then, so for the Harrison County Commissioners, Paul Prevost will take, he's running unopposed. He'll take the seat in 2025. And then there are 2 candidates running for the last seat, which is Michelle Meyer and Amy Norris, which she currently holds a seat right now. So we're keeping a close eye here in Harrison County on all those races.
Skylar, you're at the Board of Elections. What are people saying in there in terms of voter turnout today? Have things been running smoothly with the vote count so far?
Yeah, actually, I was talking to the one poll worker, and he said here it wasn't that busy. But then I heard another poll worker come in, and they said they had about 142 at their poll location. I don't know exactly where they were at, but yeah.
That's great. And looking at that, Skylar, when are you trying to? Are they saying when we might be seeing some numbers out of Harrison County?
Not just yet. They actually said we might get better results up at the courthouse. So once I get off here with you guys, I might head up to the courthouse or just stay here. We are going to talk to the poll workers and see what we kind of have to do here.
Awesome, Skylar. Well, we appreciate the work you're doing as well as all of our reporters tonight. It's not easy work. You're sitting, it's a lot of sitting and waiting, and then hurry up and
then running around like a crazy person.
So we appreciate it. We know you'll keep us posted on those races. Do you want to share your Twitter handle? So if anyone wants you'll be tweeting those results when you get them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My X handle is Skylar_WTOV9. And then my Facebook is just Skylar Sabansky WTOV. And right when I get the first paper, I will be posting it for everyone. So.
All right, Skylar, thank you so much. Be safe out there, and we will see you at 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
All right. So still waiting for some numbers. Some of these places, I'm not joking when I say some places you will have numbers faster than you can even tweet them out. And then other places, it just takes some time. Yeah. So that is why we are on until super late, and we are all.
It's kind of like the Electoral College.
Yes.
Sometimes you get the Senate race. You get Jim Justice called right away. Sometimes you have several states that are too close to call.
Like Ohio.
That's the beauty of election
We've got
night.
The best of both worlds right here in the Ohio Valley. All right. So we are going to stick in Ohio when it comes to our reporters. We have Jesse Kane, who is in Belmont County, covering a few levies issues on the ballot. And so we want to bring him in and see what kind of numbers we are seeing in Belmont County. So Jesse Kane, I also think I noticed this at 5 and 6. Jesse, did you get a haircut?
Well, I might have got one. I don't even know at this point. Probably got.
I noticed.
One
I was like, Jesse's looking slick.
Oh, thank you. No, we do.
So, Jess, do you have any numbers?
We do have some numbers. We just have the absentee numbers as of now, which those are tallied up. Again, all these are unofficial right now. But what's surprising is the absentee, and we think it's a record here, has reached 34% of registered voters in Belmont County. So that's following along with a lot of what we've heard from officials about higher early voting numbers and turnouts. Now, of course, 2020, we saw a lot of mail-in ballots. I believe the mail-in ballots have decreased, but early voting has increased. And we've seen that here in Belmont County. So now about some of the issues, again, we're covering a lot of the levies and bond issues and whatnot. So the union local bond issue, again, this is just from the absentee numbers. We've yet to get anything else. Right now, let me check my numbers here. There are 1,400 plus against compared to the 509 votes for. Now, we saw this bond issue come up. It was originally proposed in the spring, and I believe it was around a $60 million bond issue. Now it's been cut in half to around $30 million. And we talked with Dr. Zach Shuttler, the superintendent of Union Local, and his goal was to get responses from the public of what they wanted to see happen with their school. So they've adjusted, cut out a lot of the athletic improvements and focus more on some security and factors that will help with all. But once again, the votes are right now predominantly against that union local bond issue. We've also got the countywide children's services, which right now it leads by 3,000 votes. And this is a reduction levy, which will put it at 0.45 mils. Now, when we talked with Jeff Felton, the director for the Department of Job and Family Services in Belmont County, a lot of people were concerned that this meant they wouldn't provide the same services. He told me that that's not the case. Actually, what's causing the reduction and less burden on taxpayers is the fact that Governor Mike DeWine has emphasized the importance of funding from the state level these children's services programs. So it's just adjusting where that money's coming from. And honestly, if it passes, it will take away some of the tax burden on the taxpayers and residents here. And the last thing that we're really looking at here in Belmont County is the city of St. Clairsville's charter review. Now, there's 3 amendments on that. When I talked with a member of this year's board, he said that they meet every 5 years and talk about just changing the language and updating this charter as times continue to grow and what's important. So with this, one of the amendments is proposed that instead of doing the review every 5 years, it will now be every 4 years, which he said this will actually save the city some money because the election will fall in line every year with the concurrent presidential election. So they won't need to, have expenses for an additional election that odd year. So that's proposed. All of these proposed amendments are currently leading at this time by around 500 votes. The other 2 are just changing languages of some of the responsibilities and roles for certain city positions, like the planning and zoning administrator, as well as the service director, which that's just really clarifying their duties and responsibilities in those roles. It was never really clarified previously, and that's what I've got from one of the members of the board. So again, some early numbers just to review the charter. So far, those 3 amendments are for by about 500 votes each. The Children's Services Levy, that is also for. It's a reduction levy countywide, about 3,000 votes in the lead for. And then the Union Local Bond is currently against by a little under 1,000 votes.
All right. Well, Jesse, thank you so much. We appreciate you calling in. And then if you want to tell everybody what your Twitter handle is so folks can start following you to get some of these updated numbers, go for that.
Yeah, well, we should have some numbers here soon. My Twitter handle is Jesse Kane TV and Facebook, Jesse Kane WTOV. I'm sure you'll be able to find me wherever, and I'll be sending those numbers out as soon as we get them.
Awesome. Jesse, thank you so much. Be safe tonight, and we'll see you here at 10 and 11.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Jamie and Dylan.
All right. So I do want to mention Bill Steinbach tweeting again. I'm not going to take his thunder because we're going to be hearing from him in about 5 minutes, but we do have 18 of 21 precincts reporting, so they're getting pretty close in Brooke County. In Ohio County, we now have 15 of 36 precincts reporting as of about 5 minutes ago. Again, I am turning my head, so please don't judge me. Okay. So Bill Flanagan with 70% of the vote over Johnny Hott for that 4th district for the House of Delegates. For the 5th district of House of Delegates, Sean Fluharty with 59% of the vote, Thomas Sokovic with 40% of the vote. And looking at that sheriff race, that one's staying kind of tight. Nelson Croft with 54% of the vote, John Haglock with 45% of the vote. So that is Ohio County. So looking at some updated numbers as we keep going. So let's head to Marshall County next, Dylan. What do you say?
Let's
take a trip to Marshall County. Our friend Claire O'Neill is in Marshall County covering the races out there. She looks like it is windy out there, Claire, but we are so happy to have Claire out here. We're going to add her in and talk a little bit about any numbers she might have. Claire, an interesting commissioner race happening in Marshall County tonight.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we actually just got our first precincts in, and then I came out here. So I think Skylar talked about it's just taking a little while, and it's just taking a little while here. But yeah, we just got the first results in. It's 5 out of 35 for that Marshall County Commissioner race. Right now, Farrow has 673 votes, and McLaughlin actually has 680 votes at this time right now. And again, this is just coming in at the moment, and I think right now they just started pouring them all in. So I imagine when I go back in there, we'll see more.
For sure. And now you are also covering a few other races in Marshall County. Why don't you tell us about those as well?
Yeah, so I'm covering the West Virginia House of Delegates District 6 and District 7 races. In the West Virginia House of Delegates District 6 race right now, incumbent Republican Stevens has 305 votes, while Democrat Cody Cumpston has 298 votes at this time, 5 out of 35 precincts. Now for the District 7 race, we have incumbent Republican Charles Sheedy. He has 525 votes at this time, and Tennant has 197 at this time. Again, 5 out of 35 precincts.
Well, Claire, I also know that Marshall County had some issues with a few ballots last week. I know they said that all of that was fixed and they were able to change things around with that. Have you seen any issues there tonight, or has everything seemed to be running pretty smoothly?
No, I'd say everything's running pretty smoothly right now. Again, it's just too early to tell about everything. I think they're just taking their time with this to make sure that everything's correct and okay for the results here. So I think that's good. So as of right now, I haven't seen any problems. No.
Sounds good. Claire, would you like to share your Twitter and Facebook information so folks can follow along for more results throughout the night?
Yeah, so my Twitter is at Claire WTOV9, and then my Facebook is Claire WTOV9. So you can stick with me. I'm going to be posting my results here soon since I just got them. So you'll be able to see that along with some of the other precincts I imagine we just got as well.
All right, Claire, thank you so much for joining us. Be safe out there, and we will see you here at 10 and 11.
All right.
So I'm just going to go through a few states. I know we haven't necessarily been keeping up on the states with the presidential election. So the AP has called South Carolina for former President Donald Trump, as well as Mississippi. They've called Massachusetts for Vice President Kamala Harris. The AP is calling Florida for former President Donald Trump. I don't think that is much of a surprise. Alabama has gone for former President Donald Trump. Connecticut for Vice President Kamala Harris. And Maryland for Kamala Harris, as well as Rhode Island for Kamala Harris, plus Vermont. So I think these are all very much. Indiana went for President Trump, former President Trump. I don't think we have seen any surprises tonight, Dylan, I think is what people should know.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting at the amount of close to calls, maybe one or two ones that Virginia right now, too close to call. Ohio too close to call. So I think that's interesting right now when you're looking at the live data coming in. But in terms of things being called, I don't think there's anything super out of the ordinary. I have a couple numbers to pass along here, Jamie, real quick, and then I'm going to have to go to the studio to do a cut in on WTOV9. But Sherrod Brown right now, 50.3% of the vote. Bernie Moreno, 47.2%, with 41% of the votes in Ohio in for that race. So that's interesting. We knew that was going to be close. It looks like that is staying true so far with that race. In Congressional District 6 for Ohio, of course, Michael Ruley, the incumbent, with 61% of the vote to Michael Kripschek's 38% of the vote. That was only a 10% margin in the special election back in June, but with 43% of the vote in, Ruley is starting to build a healthy lead in that race. So just a couple of things there on the federal level to pass along in terms of Congress. But I'm going to step out. I think you have another guest prepped, but I will be back shortly.
Yes, and I do want to let people know we have a lot of really cool pages and tools you can use on WTOV9.com where you can break down the way the vote has shaken out per county, per state, whether you're looking at a local race, a statewide race, or a federal race. So please make sure if you want to check this out, you head to WTOV9.com. We're going to have your elections results, but also a lot of really cool breakdowns that you can kind of check out. So definitely stay with us for like another 20 minutes, but throughout the rest of the night, we'll have you covered both on air and online, as we do like to do. So we are going to bring in our final reporter that is out in the field tonight. That is Bill Steinbach, who is in Brooke County. Now, Bill, I have been following along on Twitter, and it looks like they are just kind of like throwing numbers out there in Brooke County. It looks like these numbers are updating quickly.
Yeah, Jamie, they really are. I mean, results came in right at about 7:45 or so, and then it's been boom, boom, boom. And right as we stepped outside, some of the people who are in these races actually came outside. So when we wrap this up, we'll head back inside. We might have another update, but so far, 18 of the 21 precincts are reporting, and Richard Beatty, the current and incumbent sheriff in Brooke County, is leading with about 64% of the vote over Richard Ferguson. And with A.J. Thomas and Darren Pizer in that race for commissioner, A.J. Thomas has about 62% of the vote. And then with that West Virginia Delegates District 3 race with Jimmy Willis and Cantrell, Willis is leading with about 72% of the vote right now. Results are still coming in. Of course, early on, they had the early and absentee ballots reported. But so far, these precincts are working pretty efficiently.
Well, I was going to say, I know with Brooke County, I mean, last you had reported was 18 out of 21. Are you seeing any surprises throughout any of these races, or are things kind of going as you expected?
I think there's a bit of a surprise here. When we were inside, we're talking with some of the people who were in these races. Most of the candidates are here this evening, and a lot of them were surprised with how big some of the margins were at first with the early and absentee voting. I don't think they expected to have that many voters with the early and the absentee numbers. They were very surprised with the overall, just the number that they had of those. And so far, the jump we saw from those to when they had the results from in-person voting roll in.
All right. Well, Bill, if you are about to get this last batch of votes, I'm going to let you go. Do you want to let everybody know what your Twitter and your Facebook handles are so that we can make sure that they see these final numbers if they want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Twitter, I'm B Steinbach at WTOV or at B Steinbach WTOV. And then on Facebook, I'm Bill Steinbach -WTOV9. Easy to follow along, and we'll have results here for the next couple of hours leading into the 10 and the 11.
All right, Bill, you're doing a great job. We appreciate you. Stay safe out there, and we will see you at 10 and 11.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
All right, so I think something we have heard a lot of tonight is a really big early voting and absentee numbers, which is not something that we have heard. That's something that you've heard coming out of the Democratic side of things a decent amount, but it sounds like both sides really went to the polls in big numbers locally, and that has kind of been the trend throughout the entire nation from what we're hearing. Some historic numbers so far this year. So we are still looking at some numbers rolling in, so I'm just going to look at what some of our folks are tweeting here as we start to look at this. For those of you in West Virginia, Carol Miller has a large lead over Chris Reed, 69 to 24% in the U.S. House District 1 race. That's just with 13% voting. That doesn't really concern the Ohio Valley. That's the bottom half of the state of West Virginia. But just some numbers. We have some results out of Jefferson County. So let me take a look at those. These are absentee numbers only. Looking at this right now, my eyes are getting so bad, Jordan. This is terrible. I'm going to need glasses here at some point. Okay, so Ron Kleinecke in that commission race is leading Charles Newbern. Kleinecke with 63% of the vote, while Newbern has about 37% of the vote. And then looking in that other commission race, Tony Morelli with 64% of the vote to Todd Mazzaferro's 36% of the vote. Again, these are just absentee numbers in Jefferson County. But it looks like they had a pretty good chunk of early votes in Jefferson County as well. Jessica Riley was telling us earlier that they've actually seen a huge turnout early voting. So this is definitely something that seems to be a bit of a trend throughout the country. Claire O'Neill, as you heard, 5 of 35% or 5 of 35 precincts reporting so far in Marshall County. We're taking a look. Hannah Hayes now has 15 precincts reporting in Hancock County. So we're going to take a look at those races. I think the one a lot of people have their eyes on is definitely the mayoral race for the city of Weirton. With those 15 precincts right now, Harold Miller has the lead. He has 1,105 votes. He is followed by Dean Harris, who has 1,018 votes. Flora Perone is behind him with 918, and then George Village has 137. Again, this is 15 precincts reporting, so still very early with those numbers. And then looking in Hancock County as well, the House of Delegates District 1, again, Pat McGeehan is running unopposed, so he will win that race. And then in the District 2 race, Mark Zeteslo with 1,236 votes to Olivia Dowler's 641 votes. So Mark Zeteslo is the incumbent in that race. So those are some updated numbers for you from Hancock County. Jessica Riley, just a tweet within 26 seconds. The Wintersville police levy is 61% for. The Irondale dissolution. That's been a big talker. Some folks want Irondale to dissolve, others do not. And it's looking like that is at an 89% no vote. Again, we are just looking at absentee numbers, but that is an 89% no vote thus far. And for the SVRTA tax levy, 61% is for. The mental health and recovery levy, 58% is for that tax levy. So those are some of the numbers that we are looking at right now. And we are kind of going through all of that. So let me continue walking you through some stuff. NBC News, polls to close soon in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. So for the folks following the presidential election and in some of these swing states, no swing states, none of these ones that were on the fence have declared a winner yet. The other states that have right now, Donald Trump has 105 electoral votes, and Kamala Harris, they just took it off, but I believe she had, was it 36, Jordan? 36. So no surprises in what states have been voting for whom, as we have been going through that. I'm going to look at some other numbers we have. Just updating the races that we know to be done. In West Virginia, they went for Donald Trump for president. That was called literally within 30 seconds of polls closing. In the U.S. Senate, Jim Justice defeated Glenn Elliott. He will be the next U.S. Senator, the first Republican to hold that seat since 1958, which is wild. It looks as though they are calling the race for Riley Moore to be the House District 2, West Virginia's next congressman that will represent the 2nd District of West Virginia, which is the northern half of the state, so obviously the northern panhandle. Patrick Morrisey has been called as the next governor of West Virginia. Looking at the West Virginia Secretary of State, Chris Warner has been declared the winner. Looks like J.B. McCuskey has been declared the winner over Teresa Torreseva as the next Attorney General of the state. So that is one we are looking at right now. I am clicking through some of these other ones. The State House 95th District in Ohio right now with 28 precincts reporting. Don Jones holds a 64% of the vote, while Micah McCary holds 36% of the vote. So we have all of these numbers. Once you get done watching us, when you go home and you get on the TV, whether you're watching Fox 9 or WTOV 9, we have all of these numbers scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You can see them as they update. As we mentioned, we have reporters all over the place that are looking at some of the numbers from across the Ohio Valley. We do have some updated numbers in Ohio County. These are now 30 of 30 precincts reporting. So they are getting pretty close in Ohio County. So Bill Flanagan with 66% of the vote in that House of Delegates District 4 race to Johnny Hott's 34%. Sean Fluharty with 57% of the vote to Thomas Sokovik's 42% of the vote in the 5th district for House of Delegates. And then the other one we're very interested in that county is for sheriff. That one continues to be close. Nelson Croft with 52.59% of the vote, while John Haglock has 47.37% of the vote. So that one is pretty close as we come down to the final 6 precincts of Ohio County. We have 21 precincts in Hancock County, just absentee voting so far in Jefferson County. So I think kind of taking a look at the different things that we have talked about tonight, early voting has been huge in both West Virginia and in Ohio. So I think those are definitely something that we are going to see moving forward. I think a lot of people are looking at that. We've got folks across the Ohio Valley keeping an eye on things. We obviously have a huge Senate race in Ohio. So let's look at our most updated numbers on that. Let me pull that up. Right now, there's 881 precincts reporting. That is 10% of the state's vote right now. And Sherrod Brown with 50% of the vote, Bernie Moreno with 48% of the vote. We know this race is going to come down to a razor thin margin. Almost $500 million has been poured into this race. It is the most expensive race in the entire country. And if you live in Ohio, I'm sure you have seen the ads because they have been running all the time. A ton of money being poured into this because this is the U.S. Senate seat that could flip the Senate either red or blue. So no matter who is elected president, the Senate can balance out that power. And so this is a very big seat that a lot of money has been thrown into that race. We've heard from Bernie Moreno's camp. Our friend Tyler Madden is in Cleveland with Bernie Moreno's camp. Sherrod Brown's camp, we were not able to catch up with Kate Seifert from our sister station WSYX. She is with him and has been kind of looking at those numbers. We will likely hear from her tonight at 11. Now, this is a race that they do expect to be called tonight, but it might be getting called pretty late because, as we said, we're expecting this to stay pretty thin. Again, Sherrod Brown with 50% of the vote, Bernie Moreno with 48% right now, and that is with 11% of precincts reporting. Nobody has been called in the presidential race yet in Ohio. That one is still very close. So that one's too close to call. Looking at the states that have gone for either candidate, we've had no surprises just yet. Donald Trump with 105 electoral college votes and Kamala Harris with 30 of them. Again, no surprises here. And I think I know it's going to come down to, barring any major surprises from states, those 7 swing states as we get prepared for that. So just some changes folks will be seeing around the states, whether that is Ohio or West Virginia. West Virginia will have a new governor, Patrick Morrissey. They will have a U.S. senator that is new. Governor Jim Justice will move to the U.S. Senate. The first time since 1958 that we will see a Republican in that seat. It will be him and Shelley Moore Capito moving forward. Riley Moore will be the new congressman for folks in the northern panhandle of West Virginia. So that is one. And then, of course, we are keeping an eye on the race between Michael Kripchak and Michael Ruley. This is not deja vu. You have actually seen this race, I believe, 3 times here in the last 9 months, if I'm doing my math correctly. So we are also keeping an eye on that one as we continue to go. Again, we have reporters throughout the field, up and down the Ohio River. We have folks in Charleston, the Greenbrier, throughout Ohio as we continue to check on some of these numbers. Taking a look at this, they have just called the race for Carol Miller in the House District 1, U.S. House District 1 for West Virginia. They have called the race for Riley Moore, so he will be the new congressman for House District 2, the northern part of the state. And that's pretty much all the updates we have from our folks. Again, if you would like to follow, we will continue to have these numbers pouring in throughout the night. A lot of races still up in the air. Talk you through who we've got where and who you will be seeing tonight. So we have Hannah Hayes in Hancock County, where we are following a Weirton mayoral race that is relatively close right now between 3 of the 4 candidates. Olivia Zinn is in Ohio County. She is covering a very close sheriff race. We will be seeing a new sheriff in Ohio County for the first time in 8 years, as Sheriff Tom Howard is term limited, but he will be a magistrate now following the end of this term. Jessica Riley is following 2 commissioner races in Jefferson County. We just had absentee numbers coming from that. Jesse Kane is in Belmont County following a few levies and bond issues. Skylar Sabansky is in Harrison County following commission races, as well as a House district race. Bill Steinbach is in Brooke County. We are expecting to see final numbers here from Bill at any minute. But from what we are hearing, it does seem as though Richard Beatty will win that Brooke County Sheriff's race and retain his role as the Brooke County Sheriff for a second straight term. And Claire O'Neill is in Marshall County. Last we heard from Claire, 5 of 35 precincts were reporting a very tight Marshall County Commission race in that county. Again, we are following the Brown and Moreno race very closely. Still only 11 precincts of Ohio reporting in that one. Sherrod Brown with 49% of the vote, Bernie Moreno with 48% of the vote. We do have Libertarian Don Kissick with 3% of the vote. That margin of error may be something that could come into play with how close this race has gotten. We've got Dylan Cleland back. Thank goodness.
I'm back.
How did the cut-ins go?
Good. We talked to Bill Steinbach, Claire O'Neill, and Jesse Kane. So we got some updates from them. Brooke County, well, they're pumping out the numbers.
That's what I was just saying. They've been flying. So I give them kudos. Dylan, we are down to our final 5 minutes of the show. What have some of your takeaways been so far from some of these races, both locally, state, and federally?
Before I have some numbers that I want to share on the presidential race breakdown by county. Columbiana County, former President Trump holding 65% of the vote right now there. Him doubling up Kamala Harris in votes in Tuscarawas County, 71% for Trump in Brooke County, and 64% in Jefferson County. So no surprises really there with Donald Trump having the majority of the votes in most of Eastern Ohio and the Northern Panhandle. But interesting to see the margins there. But Jamie, I think when you take a look at all these races that we're keeping an eye on, I think that the one thing that you kept hearing was it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. And I think that's holding true. I think it's holding true with this Ohio Senate race right now. I think it's holding true with the Pennsylvania Senate race, although, haven't seen a whole lot of numbers on that yet. And then I think it's also holding true overall with the presidential race. And when you look at it, you're seeing a lot of states that are too close to call. Too close to call is what we're seeing. And, percentage wise, I saw something for North Carolina just a short time ago, 49% for Kamala, 48% for Trump.
Similar to that in Ohio when they flashed that up as well.
And
yes.
So you're seeing that these races are very close. Ohio is surprising me right now with it being as close as it is. Now, again, you have the big cities, you have Cleveland, you have Columbus, Cincinnati, So those are going to typically trend a little bit more blue. Once you get more of those rural votes in, you might see more red.
Yes.
But I think that's that's going to be something to keep an eye on, at least for now. Local interest wise, does Ohio start to sway more red, or does it stay close? So that's kind of where I have seen the things that are kind of popping out to me right now.
Yes, and I was just kind of scrolling Twitter to see if I had any number updates on that Pennsylvania race, but nothing much there. It does seem as though from some early numbers, I am going to pull back up some numbers from our friend Olivia. It sounds as though, if I'm understanding this correctly, that when you go to the county by county breakdown, Jim Justice pulled 58% of the vote in Ohio County. So it sounds like Glenn Elliott actually did pretty well in his own county, which you would assume.
Yeah.
But we've also heard some pushback from folks in Greenbrier County towards Jim Justice. So I think that Jim Justice has definitely tried to get up to. We've seen Jim Justice in Wheeling numerous times, as recently as last week.
Right.
So still, Glenn Elliott made a good push in Ohio County. So I do think that is an interesting breakdown number of those.
This Senate, and we talk about the Senate in West Virginia, the Senate in Ohio. How about another batch of votes just came in? 46% of the votes, 48.7% for Sherrod, 48.7% for Bernie. They're separated by 100 and quick math, 24 votes,
Wow.
124 votes right now separating the two. So it could be a long night for our friend Tyler Madden, who is at the Bernie Moreno watch party in Westlake.
Yes. And then we also have some new precincts reporting in Marshall County. We have 10 of 35. Excuse me as I'm sitting. My eyesight is apparently going. But a very close county commission race in Marshall County. Right now, Dave McLaughlin with 51% of the vote and Mike Farrow with 49% of the vote. That is 10 of 35 precincts reporting right now. We also have Jeff Stevens with 53% of the vote in the Delegates District 6 race, and Charles Sheedy with 75% of the vote in that House of Delegates 7th District race. So those are the most recent numbers we have. We are about 50 seconds from a new set of polls closing, including Wisconsin. I believe Michigan is closing soon if they have not already.
Yes, Michigan and Wisconsin are both 9 o'clock.
So yes, as these numbers continue to roll in, we're going to be wrapping up our time with this. But of course, we will be on air from 10 to 11:30. We will be back on here at 11:45 to talk updated numbers.
Yes.
But of course, WTOV9.com is your source. We have a ton of, whether it is results, breakdowns by county, breakdowns by state. We're going to be looking at, the electoral count in the presidential race. So if there is anything that you guys are interested in looking at, you can find that at WTOV9.com. Of course, you can follow us on social media. And we will be back here at 11:45.
Yes, we will. We look forward to seeing you then.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And we will see you at 10 o'clock on Fox 9 and 11 o'clock on WTOV 9.